So what should you avoid here in this document? It is my personal opinion and my sort of observations organizationally when we implement things, that people set out to do an assessment and a roadmap, and their first deliverable or their pilot project is to develop a charter or to write generic policy documentation, and they're not sort of actionable tasks, that often doesn't lead to success. That you know, a lot of effort around charters and policies and all that kind of stuff. So that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about, you know, actual pragmatic implementation of best practices to help solve real identified problems or opportunities. And if your charter just says that, perfect. But again, try to avoid the outcome of this roadmap being that, you know, we're going to spend 3 months writing a charter and get that approved by the chancellor or whatever. That's not a good thing. The concept of postponed perfection is another thing that we, you want to come up with a plan and a roadmap that allows you to start now and start real people using it relatively immediately, instead of having to sort of say, you know, we're going to work with like 2 people until we get something totally perfect, and then we could roll out to everybody. That's not good. So this concept of continuous improvement is better than postponed perfection, is important. So if you can start documenting something, even if you only, oftentimes what we hear is our organization is not ready for this. We have like one small group that's interested, but we're not ready for this as an organization. Okay, that's fine. But should you not let that one group that's interested in doing it not, you know, document their reports or whatever it is that they want to do because the whole organization isn't ready? Let those people go, right? So that's part of this prioritization. You know, hey, we're going to roll this out. We're going to roll this out with these people that are there, and let that happen. And that'll set the, you know, example and model and you know, kind of landing point to launch the prioritization. The other thing when you do your assessment is don't focus only on problems, right? So it's easy because there's the squeaky wheel that comes to the top, but people say, hey, I only want, you know, this doesn't work and this doesn't work and this doesn't work. You might have pockets of success within your organization where people are being very successful in the use of their data or in the quality of their data or whatever, and look at those things and say, hey, is there areas of that we can apply and roll out as a best practice to the whole organization as well. Avoid focusing on content over process. So what this means is that we have this concept of just-in-time data governance, and what that means is similar to the postponed perfection, that let's say, for instance, that you have a goal to curate your reports to better understand like what reports are accurate, what reports are inaccurate, like what's a sort of a certified report, what do these reports mean, why do they exist or whatever. But you've got 1,000 reports. What we recommend is take your top 20 to 50 reports and curate them, right? The mission critical, business critical reports. And then the other 950 reports, wait, you can start, you know, slowly working through them if you want, but don't wait, don't say you have to do all 1,000 of these before we can move, you know, release this. Go out, put those things forward, and then if someone comes along and is looking at report number 703, and they say, I don't understand what this is, give them a way to ask to have that curated, or say, can I please get some information? So have a process with which you can have someone submit for a request to get that curated, or submit a request to have a policy attribute assigned to it, or whatever, and create a process that lets that happen from a customer service standpoint relatively quickly. That is an enormously useful way to prioritize. If you know you don't have time to document all 1,000 reports, say, I know that these are the 50, and I'll let the market decide, basically. I'll let the customers decide what's the next one I need to look at. And moving forward, focus on anything new that you create to make sure that you're documenting correctly and curating correctly. But looking back, wait for you know, wait for someone to ask for help on something, but then have a process to, for sure, get a response to them. And don't overcomplicate your processes. So, you know, it is tempting to say, hey, we're going to create a workflow to do approvals, and it's going to have 50 steps in it where everybody in the organization approves everything. And that's super helpful because now we guarantee that nobody's ever going to have any conflict on anything. But that never, you know, you can't do that with everything. So think about like how to keep things simple and know things that will change and evolve over time. So one last thing to think as you're building this roadmap and plan is, if if you ever heard this concept of Chesterton's fence, which is just a general philosophy that says don't never change anything without knowing why it was there in the first place. So it is tempting to basically rewrite processes or to say, I don't know why you're doing that and whatever. So if there's plenty of things that you can do and improve that you kind of understand and know, but be very careful deciding to change things that you don't truly understand, right? The concept of Chesterton's fence is a guy's walking down the road, he encounters a fence in the middle of the road. He says, this is stupid, why is this fence here? Doesn't make any sense. And he moves the fence and he goes into town and he goes in the store and he comes out of the store after being in town and the town is overrun with cows and goats, right? And suddenly he's like, oh, that's why that fence was there. Okay, I didn't know that, right? So he just assumed that there was a process problem without understanding why it was there.